Hi, everybody. If you can hear me, would you let me know in the chat box, please? Yay, awesome. All right, welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm super excited about tonight or today, depending on where you are in the world. We got a couple of minutes before we get going, so why don't you go ahead and let us know in the chat box where you are in the world. And if you feel like it, you can go ahead and type in maybe a challenge that you're facing when it comes to getting your kinders to learn to read or learn those early literacy skills. Hey, Lynette. Glad you're here. Hi, Laura, Ashley. It's going so fast. Diana, Evelyn, Claire, welcome. Holly, welcome. Alyssa, Kara, welcome. Helen, welcome. Margaret, I used to live sort of near you over there. Tara, welcome. Going so fast. Elisa, Kim, Brooke, Molly, Gina, Kelly, Suzanne, welcome. Terry is near where I live now. Kathy, welcome. Lisa in Fort Worth, Texas, welcome. Mary says hi from Chicago. Ina's in Atlanta, welcome. Cheryl's in Illinois. Hi, Dawn. Hey, Kim in Maryland. Jan in Iowa, welcome. Amanda, welcome. Shelly, welcome. Angie, Lisette, welcome. Got people from all over the U.S. Also, I've seen Ontario. We have Bahamas. We have a couple of different countries. So welcome all of you. Sarah, okay, so Sarah's sharing a concern. She's concerned about getting my really low learners to start blending. We're definitely going to address that. So you're in the right place. Alexandra in Illinois, welcome. Michelle, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. Emma in Canada, welcome. Angela, also in Canada, welcome. Rebecca in Illinois. Teresa also has a question about blending. Super. You are in the right place too. Hey, Carla. Carla's in East Tennessee. Probably not super far from me. Other blending concerns. Debbie, welcome. Bilal, welcome. Rochelle in Australia, welcome. It's probably a strange time of day for you right now, so thanks for coming. Kim in Chicago, welcome. Wow, Christy has 10 out of 18 kiddos have summer birthdays. That's a lot. Barbara in Chicago, welcome. Jamie saying sounds correctly and then saying a totally different word. Yep. America in Spartanburg, welcome. Francesca in Palm Coast, Florida, welcome. But it's warmer there than it is here. Kinders who stare at me blankly when I talk about rhyming. Well, we're going to talk about rhyming tonight. Linda is an interventionist in Connecticut. Awesome. Glad you're here. Allison, Rhode Island, welcome. Amber in Plano, Texas. Cindy says, need new ideas to teach letter sounds to struggling first graders. Awesome. We'll talk about some of that too. Denise, we're definitely going to address phonological awareness, so that should be good for your preschoolers. Wendy in Tinley Park, I know right where that is. All right, you all. Well, I am super glad you're here. I want to go ahead and get going because we do have a packed agenda. I have lots that I want to share with you, and I'm going to do my very best to keep it to an hour. So what I'm going to do now is pull up my slides. So you should still be able to see, there we go, me, but you should also see the slides bigger. Hey, Cynthia. I'm really close to Nashville, actually. All right. So thank you again for coming. Couple of housekeeping items and tech tips. We have a really full workshop tonight, which is really exciting. And you all can really benefit from hearing each other's ideas too in the chat box. I will warn you, however, that because of the software that I use, it works really well for most things, but unfortunately the chat box does get full. So if for some reason it's locking you out, I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that I can do, but if you wait and try to get in the chat later on, that will hopefully work. But I do know that sometimes it locks you out, and I'm actually going to put up a little sticky here about chatting because I feel really bad when people can't chat. All right, so I stuck that little sticky note up there. A couple of other tech tips. Make sure that All the other tabs in your browser are closed. Google Chrome is what they recommend for the best experience. If you do have other stuff open on your computer or whatever you're using, that can cause problems in you being able to see and hear things. So just make sure everything's shut down. You want to be able to focus on all of this stuff that I have to share anyway. So shut everything down. If we get disconnected for any reason, so it could be on your end, it could be on my end, always go back to those reminder emails and try to reconnect. And I have like 3 backup plans. So if something goes down on my end, just wait a minute and I will be back, knock on wood. Hopefully it'll all be smooth sailing, but just wanted to let you know about that. Another little tidbit to know is that there is a delay. So whatever you're hearing me say right now, I actually said 20 seconds ago. So that can get a little tricky with the chat. Speaking with the chat, I do try to keep up with it as much as possible. When I'm talking and presenting, I miss things for sure. It's not intentional, but I will try to scroll back, and I do stop periodically to answer questions. All of you do feel free to add on to what I'm saying, ask questions, share with each other. That's the nice thing. We have over 1,000 teachers here tonight, which is awesome, and you all can benefit from each other as well. So do feel free to use that chat box. You may also want to grab paper and pencil to take notes. I did send out the slides. Those should be in your email. If you didn't get them, I will be sending those out again later. And I think that's all the housekeeping stuff I have. So I actually feel like I know a number of you. I recognize names, and if you've been on a workshop before, welcome back. Thanks for being patient while I reintroduce myself for the 1,000th time. But if you are new to me, I'm so excited you're here. My name is Allison, and I am a reading specialist now. Also was a kindergarten teacher, of course, for multiple years, and also taught pre-K, first and second. And now I work with a range of from preschool to all the way up through 5th grade recently. So that's what I do now. I live in the Nashville suburbs with my husband, Jonathan. We have 2 little fur babies. And in my free time, when I'm not doing teacher stuff, I love to be outside. It's not very nice out right now. I can't wait for the warm weather. And I also love to read non-teacher books. But beyond all that personal stuff aside, I just wanted to share a little bit with you about why I do this. As I said, I'm a reading specialist, and I actually work part-time, and I devote the rest of my time to supporting teachers like all of you with these workshops and my blog, and I have things on Teachers Pay Teachers. And the reason that I'm so passionate about helping other teachers is because at times I've really, really struggled with teaching, especially as a classroom teacher, which I was before I became a reading specialist. And I felt so many times like I didn't have the resources I needed. I didn't have the information I needed. I had to go out there and just learn stuff myself. I didn't feel prepared in some ways, even though I had a great teacher education program and I had a great master's degree. Teaching is just a lot, right? So I've felt so many times I've been overwhelmed, stressed out, just feeling like no matter how many extra hours I put in, it was never enough for my kids. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that feeling. But so this is why I do these workshops and everything else that I do, not because I'm a perfect teacher, not even close, but because I don't want you to have to go through all of the struggles that I've been through. And what I try to do is help you skip over some of those challenges so you can really do what you are meant to do, which is teach those sweet little babies. So that's why I do all of this stuff that I do. All right, so as I said, we have a pretty packed agenda for tonight. So turn off The Bachelor, just kidding. We have lots of strategies to go over, and it's all about taking kids from knowing their letter sounds to actually reading. So, obviously this is about the process of reading, but it's going to be helpful to you whether you have kids that are still just learning their letters or if you have kids that are, making that transition to reading. This should all be relevant and helpful stuff that you can use hopefully right away. So I organized the workshop into 5 main strategies that have really worked for my kids. I haven't necessarily invented these strategies. I've learned them along the way, but they've really been effective in getting my kids from making that bridge to knowing their letters. I've heard from a lot of you that said that you were struggling with getting them to blend. So we'll talk about that, but making that bridge from knowing their letters to actually reading. So these 5 strategies, I gave them goofy little names, and they are listen up. Strategy 1, strategy 2 is multisensory magic. Strategy 3 is Blend It Baby. Strategy 4 is dedicated to dictation. Strategy 5 is Rethink Your Readers. And with that, it's not readers like your little readers, like your little students, but the books that you're giving to them. So those are our 5 strategies. And then make sure you stick around to the end, because the giveaway is probably, I would say, one of the biggest I've ever done, if not the biggest. Giving away some memberships to my new Kindergarten Literacy Club site. Super excited to tell you all about that and do the giveaway at the end. And then, of course, we will do the freebie at the end. We'll do more questions, and I do stop after every strategy to see what questions I've missed. Unfortunately, I just missed some, not on purpose, but feel free to retype. I will try to get to absolutely as many of them as I can, and I will pause, like I said, periodically to get to those. Thank you, by the way, to people who are giving a little bit of tech help tips to other people. Eric, I really appreciate that. I appreciate you guys helping each other out. Sometimes technology is just so tricky, but as I said before, Google Chrome browser, go back and reconnect from that original email if you need to, and hopefully we will be sailing smooth tonight. All right, so strategy 1 is what I called Listen Up, and as you may have guessed, it's all about phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is one of those skill sets that can really contribute to students' reading success, even if the connection isn't always obvious to us. I'm sure most of you know this already, but I want to very quickly define phonological awareness to make sure we're all on the same page about what it is. So phonological awareness is just awareness of the parts and sounds that make up words. And these are activities that we say can be done with your eyes closed. So phonological awareness is not us showing the letter P and then saying P. That would be phonics. It involves phonological awareness, right? That sound. But when we're talking about phonological awareness, there's no alphabet letters involved. I've heard people say you can do phonological awareness activities in the dark. Just means it's sound-based. There's also something you've probably heard of called phonemic awareness, and phonemic awareness falls under the umbrella of phonological awareness. Phonological awareness includes things like rhyming, and phonemic awareness is just the ability to like hear and manipulate individual sounds and words, like the sounds in cat are k, at. So phonemic awareness is a part of the bigger umbrella of phonological awareness. Another thing to know about phonological awareness is that these skills develop in kids more or less on a predictable continuum, and I'll show you that continuum on the next slide. And another thing to know is that weakness, so if we see a weakness in phonological awareness, that can be an indicator of future reading difficulty. Not always, but that's why we have to pay so close attention to our kids who may struggle, to really give them a lot more support and keep an eye on them to make sure that they do transition into reading and don't get stuck. Oops. Okay, so this is the continuum that I mentioned of phonological awareness tasks. I'm going to go just kind of list them out from like bottom to top. Bottom would be like easier, top would be more difficult. However, I do want to mention that you don't have to wait until one skill is mastered to work on the next one. So you wouldn't want to say like work on rhyming and not work on anything else until all of your kids have mastered rhyming. You can work on like a couple of them in tandem as long as you don't like I'm hitting my mic. As long as you don't overwhelm your kids with too much. You don't necessarily have to wait till like they've mastered one thing to move on to the next one. But anyway, we will go more in depth on each of these. From least complicated to most complicated, we have rhyming, we have sentence segmenting, syllable blending and segmenting, onset and rhyme blending and segmenting, which is different, of course, from rhyming. The onset of a word is the first sound, like in the word cat, the first sound would be k, and the rhyme, R-I-M-E, would be at. So blending and segmenting those. Phoneme blending and segmenting, and then phoneme manipulation would be the most complicated skill on this continuum. For the end of kindergarten, I want my students to be able to at least blend and segment phonemes. Manipulation is usually, well, it's not usually, but for some kids, they're just not there yet, and that's okay. We still do practice phoneme manipulation, but as long as my kids can blend and segment phonemes, then I feel like things have gone well. All right, so now let's go in depth on each one of those. So with rhyming, there's different kind of like subsets of that, right? First, there's just being able to identify whether or not two words rhyme. So if you ask one of your students, do hat and cat rhyme? Can they tell you yes? Then a little bit more difficult is being able to identify rhyming pairs. So if you say like a couple of different words, or maybe you're reading a rhyming book and you ask them, you know, which of these words that you heard rhyme, stuff like that. So, you know, which of these two words rhyme? Big, web, pig, and they have to pick out big and pig. And there's generating rhymes, which is even more difficult. You know, what are some words that rhyme with house? Mouse, and then they can make up other words too. So one activity, there's tons of great rhyming activities out there, but this is not a presentation just on phonological awareness. But one thing you can do that's fun is to print out rhyming pictures, things like bear and chair, and you have those pairs of pictures and you pass them out to your kids. This works really well if you work with like half the class on this. You could do it in a small group or a whole group, but I feel like using half the class at a time is like the sweet spot. But anyway, each kid has a picture and then they have to find their rhyming pair. So a kid with a picture of a hat has to find the kid with a picture of a cat. So it's, you know, they hold it up, they go to each other, they say their word, hat, cat, do they rhyme? Yes, and they stand with their rhyming partner. I do have some different phonological awareness activities. Like I believe I have rhyming memory. I may have this rhyming partner in your freebie for you, but that's something that you can play pretty easily with your kids. Okay, so next on the continuum was sentence segmenting. So here's an example of this. I would say to a child, you know, let's play a word game. I'll tell you a sentence and then you'll repeat the sentence and push a counter for each word you hear. So if I say, I love books, you would say, I love books. So they'd push a counter for every word, and you'd want to have more counters available on the table than there would be words, so that they would actually have to figure out how many words there were in the sentence. A really fun idea to practice sentence segmenting, you know, beyond using the counters, is modified hopscotch. So you can do this outside, you can do it inside, but if you do it outside, you use chalk, and instead of, you know how in hopscotch you would have like two boxes next to each other, you don't need that. You just need like a series of maybe like 5 or 6 just little squares that you would draw. If you do it inside, you can use masking tape either on the carpet or the floor, or if you have tiles or a rug that has like squares, then you can actually just use that and you don't need to draw anything. But anyway, what you would do is, and this works well with a small group, is you say a sentence. So let's use that example from up there. I love books. The child says the sentence again, I love books, and then he hops it. So it's like, it's hard to demonstrate sitting down, but it's like, I love books. So he hops one time for each word. So that's teaching concept of word, sentence segmenting. This is something that's helpful in reading and also really helpful in writing as they get that concept of word. And to us, it seems obvious, like, of course, the sentence, I love books, has 3 words. But if you think about it, we don't talk like this. I love books, right? Our words kind of run together into each other. And so for kids to have that concept of what a word is and not get confused when we have a multisyllabic word like computer and not think that's 3 different words for 3 syllables, that's something that they have to learn. And this is really helpful with those beginning writing skills as well. Okay, so moving on to syllable blending and segmenting. Blending would just be putting the parts or the syllables in a word together. So if you say water, the kids say water. Segmenting would be the opposite. So, you know, this time I'm going to say the whole word and your job is to clap the syllables. If I say popcorn, then you say popcorn. And then an activity idea, something that we do, especially at the beginning of the year, but you can do anytime, is I will say the syllables in a child's name in our class, and then they have to guess the mystery friend. So if it's Alex, I would say Alex, and then they say Alex. And then, of course, you can do the opposite, where you take different kids' names, and then you clap the syllables. Oops, going the wrong way here. Okay, so now I know we're going fast. We just have a lot to get in, but now we have onset and rhyme blending and segmenting. And I try to separate this from syllable blending and segmenting from kids, and we're not working on it at the same time very much, or at least not in the same way, because it can get confusing. But with onset and rhyme blending, for blending, you say the first sound and then the rest of the word, and then the kids say the whole word. So if you say sheep, the kids say sheep. And then, of course, segmenting, the opposite. Now I'm going to say a word, and your job is to say the first sound and then the rest of the word. So if I say bat, you say at, breaking them up like that. An activity idea that's really simple, doesn't require any prep, is just to play I Spy. So you're looking around the classroom, I spy with my little eye a desk. And the kids have to blend them to say desk. Very simple, quick, and easy. Okay, moving on to phoneme blending and segmenting and isolation and matching, all sorts of skills here. So again, just to reiterate, phonemic awareness deals with the individual sounds in words, whereas phonological awareness deals with all kinds of word parts, including syllables, onset and rhyming, like we've been talking about. But there's different kind of subset skills within phonemic awareness. So there's phoneme blending. Of course, we all know this. If I say what word does that make? Gum. Phoneme matching. So if we look at these pictures here, I might show them 3 pictures and say which word starts like sock, sun, banana, pig. And then they have to point to sun. And there's phoneme isolation. So, they could isolate the first, the middle, the last phoneme. Tell me the last sound in the word hip. And they have to say p. That's isolating, pulling out that one last phoneme. And then there's phoneme blending. So tell me, I don't know, that should say phoneme segmenting, sorry. Cross that out if you have the slide. Phoneme segmenting. Tell me all the sounds in the word fun. So that would be f, n. So these are all kind of sub skills within phonemic awareness, things that the kids might work on. And an activity that you can do, and this is kind of working on phoneme matching, being able to tell when words start with the same sound. You can play this little game where you say something like, okay, I'm going on vacation, boys and girls, and I'm going to bring sunglasses, sandals, and sandwiches. What do you think we should bring on vacation? And so, the kids will raise their hand and someone will inevitably say something like backpack. And you'll say, backpack. Sandals, sunglasses, sandwiches. No, I can't bring a backpack. Does anybody else have another idea about what we might bring? And eventually they catch on and they realize that you can only bring on your pretend vacation things that start with the S sound. So that's a really fun, again, no prep, easy thing that you can do to practice phoneme matching. And also isolation too, because they have to be able to hear the first sound in the word. So all of these phonological awareness skills that I'm talking about, I hit them a couple of times a day in whole group, and transitions are really great for this. You can even pull in movement where we like clap or stomp the syllables in kids' names, and then we go to lunch. Just takes a minute. But then small group phonological awareness instruction is also extremely helpful, especially for those kids who struggle with phonological awareness or tend to get lost in whole group. Like I said earlier, phonological awareness deficits can lead to later reading difficulties, so we really want to address that as soon as we see it. Now, when I'm talking about small groups, you don't have to necessarily have 20 minutes set aside for your phonological awareness small groups. You can pull that into whatever else you're doing, right? You probably have some other type of small group, guided reading that you do. Add on a couple minutes of phonological awareness and just address it while the kids are in a small group already. And then sometimes it might not seem as obvious that we should be assessing and monitoring students' phonological awareness skills, but it's important that we do so that we can make changes to our instruction, or like I said, provide those struggling students with more support. In my kindergarten literacy club, which again, I'm going to tell you more about at the end, I have a bunch of assessments, and that includes phonological awareness, because I know that some teachers may not have access to that as part of their normal, assessments provided by the district. Hopefully you do, but I know that not all teachers do. Okay, so we know that phonological awareness is important, but you probably already knew that, right? So now I want to talk briefly about the direct relationship between phonological awareness and reading. And here's something really important to remember. If a child can't quickly and easily do something orally, meaning with words spoken aloud, you know, he's saying sounds, listening to sounds, saying sounds, then he's not going to be able to do it when he's reading. So to make this really concrete, I want us to think about when we ask our kids to read a CVC word like top. So many little skills go into reading just one word. Because first of all, the child needs to know the letter sounds, you know, the T, the O, the P. That's phonics knowledge rather than phonological awareness knowledge, but they, you know, they kind of play together. Second, the child needs to know to segment the word in order by saying the letter sounds, t, ah. And then third, the child needs to know how to blend those sounds together to make top. So when we think about it, it's just like, oh, just read a CVC word. That's not hard. But there's so many little parts involved. And if a child works slowly or struggles to do any one of those components, then it's going to make reading that word that much more difficult or maybe even impossible for the child at that point. So that's why practicing phonological awareness skills over and over again is essential. You know, before we're giving kids CVC words to read, they've got the alphabet letters on the page to deal with. They need to be able to blend and segment sounds and words we say out loud easily, quickly, without having to worry about any letters on the page. So that's why they need to practice orally over and over and over again. So some of you were talking about issues with blending. Now, I don't know if you meant blending just when spoken aloud. You know, you say the sounds, at, and the child has to say hat. I don't know if you were talking about blending with letters, but if you're working on blending and it's just not going well, here are some other options for you. So instead of saying at, you can kind of, I don't know how to explain this, like smooth the sounds together to make it easier. So you can say at, right? So that makes blending a little bit easier for them. You can also, here's something else that you can do. Super important if your kids are having trouble with blending, phonological, like just orally. If they're having trouble with blending 3 sounds, first you can start with 2 sound words. You can do e, me, us, us. You can try 2 sound words because that's easier, but you can also take 2 sounds from the word and just blend 1. So if it's hat, instead of at, you can go hat, and then they have to say hat. Now, obviously, we do want them to get to the point where they can, you know, hear 3 sounds and blend them together. But if it's too difficult for them right now, try just doing 2 of the sounds, like hat. Try doing it that way. See if that works. Work with 2 sound words instead, too. Those are all options for your kids who are having trouble with blending. And then, of course, eventually you'll work them into 3 sound blending. And another little note, like I kind of already said this already, but if you're talking about blending in terms of like kids seeing letters on the page and not being able to blend the sounds, really hit that phonological awareness hard. Make it so that it's so quick and easy for them to do it orally before you really start expecting them to work with the letters more easily, because that phonological awareness will make a big difference. All right, we could have a whole workshop on phonological awareness, but we have 4 other strategies to get to. So we're going to stop for a couple of questions now. Again, if you're having trouble getting in the chat box, I apologize. I wrote a little note to you up there. It does fill up because we have a full workshop, which is awesome. But if it's not working, you know, try again later, and hopefully it'll work for you. All right. Rita mentioned singing the sounds. Yes, super helpful also. So check out what Rita was saying. She said holding the note until the tack on the next sound. Dion, want to address what you're asking, but we'll kind of talk about that. Look for strategy. I think it's strategy 3, and we'll address that in strategy 3. Haley, the way that you teach them to blend is just basically what I was saying, is by practicing over and over and modeling too. So at, cat. So you're just showing them over and over again. They do pick it up eventually. And like I said, you can try to, you know, just do 2 sound words to begin with if that's tricky. Okay, so question, Trevon, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. What program do you suggest for Phonological awareness, Haggerty is very good. Haggerty is a good one. Sarah, can we apply this to second language teaching? Sarah, I assume that you're talking about English language learners. I don't know if you're teaching them in English, Spanish, maybe clarify a little. Rachel, rubber band approach. So I think this is what you're talking about, is when you take a rubber band and you show kids how to stretch out a word, right? So if you're trying to get them to stretch out cat, at, that's what I've seen a rubber band used for. All right, I know that I haven't got to everybody, but I want to keep moving, want to respect your time and try to keep it to an hour. So we are going to move on to strategy number 2. If you did have a question that I didn't answer, save it, write it down, and then at the end, I'll stay as long as I can, as long as you all have questions. I will address those at the end too. So if I didn't get yours, I apologize. Just write it down and we can definitely talk about it later. You can type it in again. All right, so strategy number 2 is called multisensory magic. For those of you who are asking about letter identification, letter sounds, we're just not there yet. This stuff can really help with those areas. Multisensory strategies can be used to practice letter sounds, sight words, so many other skills, even like numbers, math stuff. Obviously, we're focusing on reading tonight, but multisensory strategies are super useful in helping kids learn the building blocks of things that they need to read. Okay, so what is multisensory instruction? It is instruction that helps kids learn using more than one sense. It helps, as I said, kids master important building blocks like letter sounds, letter names, even sight words to make reading easier. And it's especially important for struggling learners. When you have a child that's struggling with reading, struggling with learning those letter sounds, these strategies are what we can use to intervene and provide them with more support, provide them with different support. They're also great for all our kids. All right, so there's like a billion multisensory activities out there. I want to just hit on, I guess I pulled out 3 for you that are fun, effective, and any of these can be used to practice letters, letter sound, letter name, or sight words. So they're very flexible. All right, so this is a picture of a travel soap box. It has salt in it. You can also use sand, of course. And these little boxes are great for having kids practice letters. So if you have a small group or whatever, you can pass out these little travel soap boxes and then you can practice letters. And to make it multisensory, you want the kids tracing the letter and verbalizing it as well. So what this would be is pretend that this is my little salt box and we're working on the letter S. So we're tracing and we're either saying S or we're saying S. Or we're saying, ideally, S says S. So you're getting both. So the multisensory comes in where the kids are tracing and they're verbalizing it. They're doing it both at the same time. Very quick and easy once you teach them how to do it. Makes great practice for guided reading. Now, obviously, I guess not obviously, but this is small, this little soapbox. And so if you want to work on sight words, here are some other options because those have more letters, of course. Pencil boxes. Linda just said pencil boxes. Megan said pie tins. Thank you. You guys are like reading my mind. Paper plate. If you take a paper plate with sand in it, kids can use that pretty easily. You can stack them to save them pretty easily too. You don't have to dump it out every time. You can also take, like, if you have their little lunch trays from the cafeteria, or if you happen to have some or order some, those work well. You just want something with a little bit of a lip. Thank you guys for sharing ideas about what to use, but you want something bigger if you're going to do sight words, but the way that you do it is the same, right? So you might have a little chant or something. So T-H-E, the, but you want them to say the letters, to verbalize the letter names when they're writing the sight word, and of course, say the actual word. So that's one activity you can do. Another thing you can do, and there's different ways to make this happen. There are sandpaper letters out there, or like bumpy letters that you can buy and have, like on that index card, and have the kids trace the S. S says S, right? And they can feel it. It's bumpy, but you can also make your own. If you've ever seen fabric paint or puffy paint, then you know that when you put it on something, it's raised. So all you need, and you don't, I just like took this picture from Amazon. You don't need that many colors. You just need like 1 or 2 things of the special paint. You could maybe do 1 color for consonants, 1 for vowels, but you take index cards, and I believe I used large index cards. You just write the letter, and then my paint wasn't dry, so you can still see the writing through it, but you just have the kids trace, just like you do with the standard salt. S says S, and it's bumpy. They can feel it from the fabric paint. Lots of ways of making bumpy letters, but that's just one inexpensive way if you don't want to purchase any. All right, so this is another one of my favorites. Again, all of these can be used to practice letters and or sight words. This one I really like because the actual act of writing is multisensory, and then they can trace it too. So this weird plastic thing is called a plastic canvas. And I'm not a sewer, I'm not a knitter, so I don't really know what you use it for, but it has something to do with sewing or knitting. But basically, I did not come up with this idea myself, but you can take one of these little plastic canvas things and actually cut them up so your kids can all have one. But you give them a little like strip of paper, the kids write the sight word. So with a crayon, you want them to use a crayon, T-H-E, the. So, you know, again, this is multisensory. They're verbalizing it, they're writing it. And then afterward, they take the paper off and they can trace it because it's created bumpy letters. You can have them take with their finger again, T, and they're tracing on the paper, T-H-E, the. So it's like almost 2 activities in one. Certain types of glitter paper, like scrapbook paper, will also create this effect. Some of them are better than others, but you can usually get those at Michael's. You know, sometimes they sell them like per sheet, so you can try it out right there in the store and see if it works without destroying the paper. But that's another thing that you can use instead of the plastic canvas. And should have mentioned, I have in your freebie, which again, I'm giving at the end. At the very end, I'll be sharing the freebie link. And on the first page, I have a link to Amazon for the plastic canvas. So don't worry about finding it right now. I don't want you to have other tabs open and make this crash, but I do have the link for a plastic canvas for you if that's something that you want to get. I have that for you in your freebie. All right, so just kind of to sum up before we move on, all of these 3 strategies that I shared, they're just different ways to get kids to practice letters, letter sounds, sight words, but whatever you're doing, you don't just want them tracing or you don't just want them writing, you want them verbalizing. So the thing that I was saying was S says S. Or if your kids are struggling and they just need to focus on either the letter name or the letter sound, you can do that too. It's really up to you, but it's multi-sensory. It's more than one sense, all of these little activities. And like I said, there's a ton of awesome ones out there. And I think I saw you sharing them in the chat. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. Other ideas? With sight words, something that's been really helpful for my kids is to either sing or chant them to kind of get some sort of rhythm. There are like videos out there on YouTube you can go search for, but even if you just have some sort of rhythm, T-H-E, the. T-H-E, the. So then when they're writing them or even reading them, you know, they could kind of sing that to themselves and they have the rhythm. It makes them memorable. Another thing that you can do is to add a movement. I'll see if I can back up a little to show you. Crossing the midline is something that is supposed to be helpful. The midline of the body is something that's supposed to be helpful in reading development. And you can incorporate that in your sight words. You can't really see, but you can have the kids touch their hips, T-H-E, the, or their shoulders, T-H-E, the, or do something else. I'm sure you have lots of creative ideas, but that combination of the kind of like the chant, the rhythm, and movement is really helpful. Sometimes we might feel like, yeah, you know, our kids already know their letter sounds. When we assess them, they get them all 100%. Awesome. But then we can fall into the trap of thinking that they don't need to practice just the letter sounds anymore. But the speed at which they can produce their letter sounds really does matter. And maybe for some of your kids, maybe, you know, they can tell you the letter sounds, but they need to increase their speed so that they're not thinking about each individual sound when they're working on reading a C word, CV, C word. It just comes quickly to them. So my point here is that multisensory activities are fun and beneficial for repeated practice too. Even after you feel like your kids know their letter sounds, these are fun things that you can do just to have them practice. Again, this can just speed up their processing. Like I was talking about with that word top, the faster they can do each one of those little individual skills. I'm going to scroll back up here. You know, the letter sound knowledge, that reading that CVC word involves all of these skills. So the faster they can do each one, the more likely it is that they're actually going to be able to read the word. Okay, so that was multisensory magic strategy 2. Let me see if I can grab a question or two. Thank you all for sharing resources. I appreciate that. Heidi songs. Yes, I've heard good things about Heidi songs. And Marcia mentioned tapping it out on the arm as you say the letters. So this is another thing I'm going to demonstrate. Thanks for sharing that, Marcia. You can have them do, you know, T, H, E, the. That's another option too. I sometimes have them segment doing this. So I don't do the arm, but the arm is a great strategy. And I've seen many people doing that. Lois says, is spelling just as important as identification? Lois, we're going to kind of address that actually, probably since strategy number 4. And Lynette says, what part of the reading block would you incorporate this in? So Lynette, this can really go anywhere. You know, with Kinder, at least for a while at the beginning of the year, we do a lot of whole group letter activities. And so, you know, our phonics at the beginning of the year anyway is more whole group. And so you can do that whole group. Some of these activities, you can do it small group. Eventually we do phonics small group, or a lot of times we incorporate it into guided reading. So incorporate it into guided reading. Those are both good times to work on these things. Okay, so strategy number 3 is called Blend It, Baby. And it's all about the importance of teaching students to blend sounds. And it's helpful to do it as soon as possible in the school year, at least to start modeling. And it's important to do it over and over and over again, because we all know we have some little ones who do struggle with that. So the daily blending drill that I do is just taking 3 letters and changing out one of them each time to make a new word. It's not necessarily the same as doing like reading multiple words in a word family. It's manipulating all 3 of the letters, and I'll show you that in a minute. As soon as your kids know like 5 or 6 consonants and 1 vowel sound, which probably by this point in the year, if you're in the US, they already know much more than that. But thinking, you know, towards next year, as soon as your kids know 5 or 6 consonant sounds, 1 vowel sound, you can start doing this blending drill with them. And you're going to do a lot of modeling at first, but that is totally okay. And this is something that's super helpful to do on a daily basis, every single day, in whole group. Maybe also in small group too, especially for those struggling kids. But what I want to do now is I'm going to show you how to actually do the blending drill. And I was trying to figure out how to show you this if we were together and I had a document camera, I could show you it very easily. But what I did instead, because we can't all be together, is to take pictures of it. So the pictures are going to simulate how to do this drill. Okay, so you can't see it here, but below these letter cards, I have other letter cards. So they're like little stacks. And we're going to use these 3 stacks of letter cards to switch them out and make a bunch of different words. So let's say that you have these displayed maybe under the document camera. I'm going to show you another option after we talk about this drill. I'm going to show you another option instead of using the document camera. But you have these stacks of letter cards or under the document camera. And let's say that your kids aren't at the point where they can go set on their own. A lot of them need a little extra support. So here's what you do. You've got your cards. You say, okay, listen. You say set. Okay, let's do it together. Set. So you did it by yourself. You do it with the kids, and then the kids do it on their own. Again, set. So 3 times. Eventually, it is just going to be you pointing to each letter and then, you know, saying the sound and blending on their own. But at first, it can be I do, we do, you do to support them. Now, the purpose of this, and you have to kind of train them in this, is not to just yell out set. That's not the purpose. The purpose is not just to read the word. The purpose is to blend. This is a blending drill. So that's why we do it every single day. A lot of kids struggle with blending. The more you do it, the easier it becomes for them. All right, so this was just one word, right? Now we took the first letter off the stack, right? We started with set and we replaced that. We took off the S and there was an F under it. Under that was an F. So we read fet. And it's not a real word, and that's okay. The kids can show thumbs up or thumbs down to indicate if it's a real word or not. So don't worry if you come up with a word that's a nonsense word. Just to explain, not all the words we make are going to be real words. You can show me with your thumb if it's a real word or not. Okay, so that was the second one. And just like you would with the first one, if you need to do, I do, we do, you do, then you do it, right? You give the kids whatever support they need and gradually take it away as the kids don't need it anymore. Okay, so now I took off the first letter again. It's okay to take off the same letter more than once. Underneath was ket, et, ket. Now I took off the vowel. Now it's k, it, kit. The kids are showing thumbs up because it is a real word. And then I took off the last letter, kin, k, in, kin. So it really doesn't matter which letter cards you're taking off and changing each time. The point is to just practicing, to just practice manipulating each sound, you know, the first sound, the middle sound, the ending sound, just one at a time. And you can do this for a couple of minutes, so more than what I showed here. Okay, so these cards work really well for me because I do a lot of intervention. I'm sitting next to a child and, you know, we're looking at the table together. But if you have a whole class of kids, then, you know, you can do it under the document camera 100%, but you might also want another option. So this is something, I saw similar things to this on Pinterest, but they involved making stuff, and I am not super crafty. That is not one of my gifts or blessings. So what I did is I bought this binder that stands up by itself. This link is in the freebie for you from Amazon. This is just some, I don't know, display binder for your corporate presentations or whatever. But I got one and I took these letter cards and I put them on here so that this is what you can do. Let me unshare for a second. Okay, so I have my little thing right here, and there are lots of other ways of making this. There's things that you can buy out there, but this is relatively inexpensive. I will show you that I paper clipped back the cover, super high tech and fancy, I know. But I have these cards for you in the freebie, so they're all sized for you for whatever you would need. I hope this isn't backwards. If it is, it's going to look a little silly, but basically, you know, you do it just like the other one. So if you want to give a lot of support, listen, say listen, and ran. Okay, now let's do it together. And ran. Now you do it, and the kids, and ran. Okay, let's take off the middle letter. Ron. I don't like that. I'm just going to do, sorry, it's kind of hard to do this. Rom, not a word. That's okay. Watch out for bad words. Rem. I don't like that because that's a super soft G and we haven't learned that yet. Hem. So you're just flipping these back and forth. So again, I have the link for this binder thing for you. It's affordable. It's pretty durable. I feel like it's pretty good. And I have the letter cards sized exactly what you would need in your freebie. When you look at the freebie, there's one set of cards that's for the table, like the size that I would use on the table. But then the second set, and I wrote it in the freebie, but in the second set, there's the cards that are sized exactly for that if you want to make that. So relatively inexpensive, not hard to make, especially if you are a little bit uncrafty like I am. All right, so you should be able to see my slides again. Okay, so of course you also want kids to do the opposite, right? So you would sometimes want to tell them a word and then have them break it down into the sounds and make it. Maybe you say the word map and your kids on their own can say app, map, or maybe you need to break it up for them. Map, listen, app. Let's do it together. App. Now you do it. App. And then they make it. Sounds like a lot of talking before they actually make it, but some of our kids are at that point where they still need that support. This tray is from Amazon. Obviously, I have an Amazon problem, but the link for that is in the freebie for you as well. I will say that these are not super cheap. I looked like all over. I spent a really long time looking for one of these. I like this one. For me, I don't need a ton because, again, I'm doing intervention, but you know, if you wanted to get a set of these or look for something similar, there are kind of plastic ones out there. But what you do is you just fill like consonants in one, vowels in the middle, and then of course consonants at the end again. And you can actually, with these, you can kind of like, depending on how many letters you have in them, you can kind of stack the trays. And it saves a little bit of time when you're having kids get out magnetic letters for, you know, guided reading or small group, because you've got the consonants sorted, you've got the vowels ready to go. It is a little bit of a time saver. So I have the link for this tray in the freebie for you if you want to check that out. And again, the freebie is coming relatively soon at the end here. Yep, Helena's talking about Orton Gillingham, which her district uses. Yeah, a lot of these strategies either are from Orton Gillingham or work really well. They're multi-sensory. Lots of good stuff that works for kids who are struggling, but also for all learners too. Oh, and Jennifer says you could probably buy dollar store cookie sheets and tape off the 4 areas for cheaper trays. I like that idea. Julie also mentioned Target in the kids section for dishes. Awesome. Marcia says, would you have students change the letters themselves to create new words? Yes, that could definitely be part of this, Marcia, where you're manipulating, you know, okay, now you made map. Can you make cap? What letter would we need to change? Okay, the first one. That could definitely be part of the conversation too. We do that a lot. All right, going to try to keep us on track for time, so I'm going to keep rolling. Remember, write down your question if I didn't address it, and you can absolutely ask it later again. Strategy number 4 is something that I called dedicated to dictation. And dictation, of course, is not something that I made up, but a dictation is just directing students to write words and or sentences that use sounds and sight words that they've learned. If you use Orton Gillingham, if you use Jan Richardson's guided reading, then you may be familiar with this concept already. And this is one of the strategies that I kind of feel like is maybe a little bit surprising, because if you're thinking about kids that are maybe struggling with letter sounds or they're not reading much yet, it might sound counterintuitive when I'm telling you, hey, do more writing with them. But I will tell you for sure, this is probably, you know, I mean, all these strategies are important, but this is probably one of the most important strategies here. Having kids spell words using sounds that they know, you know, giving them support as necessary. This helps solidify those letter sounds, and it really helps them with overall reading and, of course, spelling and writing too. Okay, so this is how you do a word dictation. You can do it whole group, you can do it small group, you can do it both. I don't know that many people have time to do both every single day anyway, but this is a quick addition to the end of guided reading. You know, you come up with a sentence, maybe it has something to do with the book that they read, and then they write it quickly. You can also do it whole group. Now, if I have a group of kids, a class of kids that they're really, you know, on totally different ends of the spectrum in terms of like really low and some really high, I don't know that I would do this whole group very frequently. I would want to more like differentiate in guided reading. But you can, you know, it's still beneficial to do it whole group, even if you do have a range. You can decide what works best, what makes the most sense for your kids. But anyway, however, whatever setting you're doing this, I sometimes do it on whiteboards. Sometimes whiteboards are quicker and easier, but generally it's nice to do it on paper because then you have a record of the kids writing and you can kind of take a look at it. But you give, if you're dictating words, you give kids lined paper, probably want to have it numbered already for them. And you can, if your kids need this support, you can have a box for each sound. So if like hat is one of the words they're going to spell, you can have 3 boxes. You can set up the paper however they need it. Give them as little support as they need, right? So you want to support them, but you don't want to give them so much that they don't have as much work to do. So that, again, is kind of a feel out your kids thing. So this is how you'd actually do the dictation. And all the kids are looking on their own papers. And you say, for example, hat. Say it in a sentence. I wore a hat on my head. Hat. Repeat. And then they say hat. And then if they need you to segment for them and with them, then you say, okay, hat. At. Let's do it together. At. Now you do it. At. Now you write it. Obviously, that takes longer, but if your kids need that, that's where you start. And eventually you get to the point where you just say hat and they write hat, right? You might have to work up to this. So then, of course, they write the word, and then I write the word on the board and I say, check it. Now you can have them erase or fix. I will say that with whiteboards, it's fine. But with paper, they rip the paper and that ends up being a disaster. Even if you don't have them erase or fix, which often I don't, maybe they'll cross it out. Regardless, you want them to write it correctly. So even if they do erase or fix their original writing, you want them to write it correctly, H-A-T, looking at your example. So if I'm doing word dictation, I will give 4 or 5 words total. CVC words to start, of course, and then as you teach more things like digraphs, other patterns, you can incorporate those. And then once your kids have written their 4 or 5 words, then you have them read them. You can have them read them in order, out of order. You just want them reading what they've written. So just like with blending, you can do this as soon as you've taught like 5 or 6 letters toward the beginning of the school year. As long as you have a vowel and you have 2 consonants, kids can write some CVC words, right? You would just support them a lot with the segmenting in order for them to be able to do this. So once kids have that word dictation down, pretty quickly thereafter, you can also add in sentence dictations. So maybe in one sitting, you would do 4 or 5 words, and then you'd add 1 or 2 sentences. And obviously when you're starting out, just do just start out with like 3 words and then eventually work up to like 5 words and then add 1 sentence. Like it takes them a while at first. So you're going full force into like 5 words and 2 sentences if they've never done dictation is going to take forever, but to save time, you can kind of pull back and start slow. Anyway, when you're doing sentence dictation, or when I'm doing sentence dictation, this is what it sounds like. I'll say, okay, the sentence is, we can run. Repeat. So I always like touch my ear when I want them to repeat. We can run. Let's count the words. We can run. Write it. Now, eventually your kids are just going to write, we can run, no problem. But again, you're going to have to support them. And so you might have to do a couple of things. You might write lines on the paper so that they see that there's 3 words, right? So you might say, okay, first word, we. And then we wouldn't segment that because that's a sight word that they know. So the word we, write we. Okay, second word, can. Let's segment it. Can. I didn't say that quite right, but you get my drift. So you segment it, then they write it, and then you could segment run as well. My point here is, and I know I'm going kind of fast, but just give them the support that they need. So if you can say a sentence and they can just go write it, great. But you may have to break it down word by word. You may, again, want to segment while they listen with them and then have them do it on their own. You fill out what feels right. If you don't know, that's okay. Start with a lot of support, start with all the supports that I've suggested here and then pull back and see what they can do. So of course, then you want them to check it. You write the sentence on the board. After they're about done, I say, check it. This is a time when you might discuss capital letters, spaces, punctuation. You can't go super, super, super in depth on all of those topics every single day, but this is a good time to reinforce that. And then the kids rewrite the sentence correctly. With the sentence dictation, I really don't, like a full sentence, I really don't have them erase or fix it. They just rewrite it correctly. I might say something like, okay, look at your sentence. Notice if there was anything different between, your sentence and my sentence. So they're not just like immediately copying over and ignoring their mistakes. I want them to check it and notice, but you know, it can get confusing if you're asking them to do all this erasing, especially if it's paper and, you know, just a regular eraser, they can tear, you know, all that good stuff. So you may just want to have them rewrite it after they've noticed what is different. It's up to you though, whatever you feel like is right for your kids. I give 1 or 2 sentences. I try to get up to 2. And again, you're choosing sight words and words that the kids can spell phonetically. So you want to be really clear on what you've taught through the school year so that you can refer back to that and say, okay, I can pull these CVC words in, I can use these sight words. And if you're doing a lot of differentiating, then you may want to do this in a small group setting. Just again, depends on your kids. After the kids are finished writing their sentences, then they would reread them just like they would with the words. So I guess the last question probably is, when on earth am I going to have time for this? But as I mentioned, guided reading or the end of your small group, that can be a really good time for doing the dictation in a small group setting. Maybe you at least want to introduce dictation in a small group setting for a while so that the kids really learn how to do it. And then maybe you're okay with doing it whole group. In whole group, you know, maybe this is a quick warm up before you have your, you know, your regular writing workshop mini lesson and writing time. If you set things up so that kids can really quickly get their paper and pencils and they know where it is, what to do, it honestly doesn't take that long. Again, start out with just a couple words and build. Don't start up with, you know, 5 words and 2 sentences. Work your way up. But if you get rolling with it, it doesn't take that long. You will definitely want your struggling students to do this every single day. And ideally, in a perfect world, it's great if all your kids can do this every day. I've seen such a big difference with my kids in doing dictation. I have seen other people talking here in the chat. I'm missing a lot here, but I've seen other people talking about how much it's helped their kids. But I really encourage you, if this is not something that you do, try this out. It makes a big world of difference for kids learning letter sounds, spelling, just all sorts of stuff. Okay, we are getting short on time, so I'm going to skip questions and I will come back to them shortly. But strategy number 5 is pretty short and sweet. It's called Rethink Your Readers. And again, this is not your students as readers. This is the actual like emergent readers, the beginning books that you're having your kids read. Okay, so many of us use level texts. Like this is level A book. It's patterned, right? On every page, it's ICA something. And this is actually a level A book that I created. It's called The Zoo, and it goes, I see a tiger, I see a bear, I see a zebra, I see a monkey, etc. The purpose of these level A books is to teach kids how books work. They're not doing a ton of real reading. You know, maybe they're recognizing some sight words, and that's great. They're relying heavily on the picture because they don't know how to decode bear. They don't know how to decode zebra, right? They can use maybe the first letter. I see a bear, right? That's just where they are right now, and that's fine. But the problem is that we can't leave them in these level A books for very long, or they begin to think that reading is about looking at the picture and just guessing a word, right? I see a zebra. They know it because the picture is there. So we definitely don't want them to think that that's what reading is, right? So these level books are useful. They serve a purpose. I use them with success, but kids can get stuck in them really easily. They can get the wrong idea about what they need to do to read because they're not actually decoding too many words in these books, you know, sound by sound like we want them to do with reading CVC words. So here are some ways to get around this issue. One thing that you can do that actually uses level A books is to, once your small group is finished reading the level A books or book, take their books away and hold up one copy and cover up the picture, either with your hand or with paper, and have them reread the book. Because they can't see the picture, they have to rely much more on the print, even if it's just the first letter. But that's a way to use level A books in a way that is, you know, getting them, yes, to learn, you know, pointing and all the important stuff that beginning readers need to learn, but also forces them to use the actual letters on the page too when you cover that up. Another solution is to use decodable texts. So the second I feel like a kid is, just guessing and they're getting stuck and that's what they think reading is I really just take away those level A readers for a while and we use decodable texts. Even if I have to make them because they don't know so many sounds. But these are these books that sound like Cam sat on the mat. It uses a couple sight words. It uses like 4 or 5 letters, a couple consonants or whatever. But these are books that the kids have to read. They're not able to rely on the pictures. And if you're looking for decodable text, so Reading A to Z has some of them are not great because, like, for example, they'll show you digraphs and the book will also have like long vowel words in it too. So it doesn't really follow a normal scope and sequence. But some of the books in Reading A to Z are very good. You may have books with your reading series that have decodable texts. They're out there, just requires some looking sometimes. Another possible solution when you're like, okay, my kids are at level A and we're not moving on, is actually just to stick them in level B texts. When you have a good level B book, it does have, plenty of CVC words and things that they can actually successfully sound out. So what I would do is just say, okay, like we're stuck, we're moving on. So I would just give them a level B book and I would give them some support. So maybe we'd only read half the book, in one sitting. Or maybe, I pre-teach more of the words. You can give them more support. Maybe I read it to them first and they read it, or we echo read first. Whatever I do, I want them to be successful with that level B book, but also have to do some real decoding. Because again, I just don't want them thinking the reading is all about repeating a pattern and looking at the picture and guessing. That's not what we want them to think. So all of these things, you can use all of these solutions to really get around this issue. And again, help push your kids from that just using the first letter to actually doing some real reading. All right. Thank you all for your contributions and sharing about decodable texts. Awesome. So we are going to get some more questions in a minute, but we have gone through a lot tonight, right? Those were our 5 strategies that we just covered. They were listen up, phonological awareness, multisensory magic, all those different tracing and verbalizing stuff that we talked about. Strategy 3 was all about blending. Strategy 4 was dedicated to dictation. And strategy 5 was rethink your readers. And I hope that all of this was helpful to you. Hopefully you got a couple of new ideas to take back and try out with your kids. I also know that this is a lot of information and it's really easy to walk away from a workshop like this one feeling overwhelmed. Maybe overwhelmed in a bad way, but maybe overwhelmed in a good way. Like you have all these new ideas that you want to try. And, maybe sometimes you end up implementing like 1 or 2 things from a workshop, but you can end up losing momentum really easily, right? Because you don't have enough time. The school day doesn't stop for you to try out these new things as much as you may want to. And of course, that's not your fault. You have a ton on your plate already, right? This is probably what your to-do list looks like, unfortunately. You maybe are staying late after school and you're prepping and planning on weekends, your Sundays. You got the Sunday blues. And that, unfortunately, can end up causing a lot of problems for you in the rest of your life. Maybe you have kids and you feel guilty because you want to spend your weekends with them, but you always end up having to do stuff for school. Maybe you want to work out more, but when are you going to have time to do that if you're always staying late at school? Or maybe you just are not having enough time for yourself. Maybe you have anxiety, having trouble sleeping, just that to-do list that never seems to end. I talk with a lot of you via email and Facebook and Instagram, and I really take what you tell me about all of this to heart. And I can 100% relate. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, I don't do these workshops because I'm a perfect teacher or there's something magical about what I'm doing. I do them because I have really struggled in the past, especially as a classroom teacher. I've had anxiety, I've had sleeping problems, and I really want to make things easier for you. Something that I believe really strongly is that you should not have to sacrifice your entire life for this job. You know, we're all passionate about what we do. We care about our kids, but you should not have to choose between being a great teacher and having a life. You absolutely deserve to have time for yourself, for your family, for your friends. And honestly, being a good teacher means being rested and having a happy life outside of school so that you can bring your best self to your kids. I don't know about you, but if things are not going well at home or I'm just overwhelmed, like I'm not the best teacher that I can be. So with all of this in mind, I told you earlier that I work part-time in my reading specialist job so that I can support all of you teachers. And I really want to be able to work with you and support you more closely, both in implementing the things that we talked about in today's workshop, but just beyond too. So recently I decided to create an experience that isn't like anything else that I've ever done before. You know, typically I've done like one-off webinars or a product that you can download. This is brand new and this is different. It's a new membership site called the Kindergarten Literacy Club. And the purpose of the Kindergarten Literacy Club is to give you the resources that you need to be a great teacher, but also support so that you can have a more balanced and hopefully happy life outside of school too. And I am so excited because this is the first time that I'm opening up the Kindergarten Literacy Club for new members. It's brand new, and I am super excited to be working with you and supporting you on more of an ongoing basis than I have been able to in the past. So this is our giveaway for tonight. I'm giving away several 6-month memberships to the Kindergarten Literacy Club. And if you're a Kindergarten Literacy Club member, you're going to get brand new resources every single month. They're just going to be uploaded into your login and you have them. So every single month I have this 1, 2, 3, 4 thing. You get one group video chat. So we're going to do a live kind of workshop like this, but it's going to be closed to just Kindergarten Literacy Club members. And I'm going to do just a little PD. I'm going to show you the other monthly materials and talk about how to use them. And then we're going to have a lot of time for Q&A. Maybe you have an issue in your classroom and you want to troubleshoot with me and the other awesome teachers in the club. So there'll be plenty of time for Q&A, questions and answers then, to support you with that video chat. So the PD that I mentioned is going to be around a focus topic. Like one month we might do phonological awareness or whatever. You can vote and we'll decide what we want to do. But you're also going to get 2 tools or resources to support you with the monthly focus topic, and those will vary just depending on what you want to work on. You'll also, every single month, this is every month, you get brand new 3 guided reading books with lesson plans for each. This month, I did levels A, B, and C. We can kind of vary the levels depending on what your kids need, and we can talk about that. But those are brand new every single month. And then also brand new every month, you get 4 centers. You can use those whether you do literacy centers or daily 5 or whatever independent work you do. Those will be brand new every single month. And the reason why I decided to include those last 2 guided reading books and materials for centers or daily 5 or whatever is because to me, that is one of the most time-consuming parts of the day to plan. Like, it's crazy because you have all your guided reading or small groups, but then you also have to have all the stuff to keep the other kids learning and occupied while you see your groups. So my goal with this is just to save you a ton of time. And the nice thing is the longer you're a member, you're going to build up this library of just all these books and all these centers so you can log in and really get what you need pretty quickly and easily. So real quick, these are just some examples of the monthly materials for this month, January 2019. This is it's a post office like literacy exploration and play center where the kids can, practice reading and writing in a meaningful way. It incorporates play. They can write little postcards. I have all sorts of suggestions for you and little materials that you can print out and have them play with. Great for February because a lot of times we do like letter writing or whatever in February. Also have a sight word game. You can't see it because it's too small, but I've got some cute little penguin and polar bear emojis on here. The kids are trying to race to be the last one, and you can use your own sight words. You can even use letters with it if you're still working on mostly alphabet letters. This is just a photo of one of the guided reading books and the lesson. And then this game I'm super excited about. There's actually 2 versions. You can choose the techie one or the non-techie one. very flexible. The kids are seeing a picture, they're hearing a word, and they're writing. You can have them do either the first sound on a whiteboard, the middle sound, or the final sound, or you can do the whole word. But the techie version actually just has this PowerPoint where you just put it up, press play. The kids have audio, they can listen to the word, they write it on their whiteboards, and then the next slide shows them the right answer so they can check it. And then there's just a bunch of them like that. Or the low-tech version is just you have a student leader, they show the picture, the other kids write whatever letter it is that you want them to write, and then they reveal it and look at the correct answer. So this is all from January 2019, and there's more stuff from January 2019. This is just a little snippet because I want to go ahead and get to our giveaway. But all of the centers come with visual directions for your kids so they can see what they're supposed to do. There's differentiation options. There's going to be some play-based centers like what I mentioned there. Pretty minimal prep, and you don't have to use tons of ink. For some things, you just print out like one sheet and you're done. And absolutely anything that's in color is also included in black and white too. So you don't feel like you need color ink for this at all. Guided reading books also, they have digital versions too. So you can print them single-sided, I have them double-sided, or you can just do a digital version as well. These materials, I also wanted to mention, are not things that are in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. They're not going to be in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. These are separate for the Kindergarten Literacy Club members. So in addition to all that new stuff that's coming every single month, as soon as you log into your account, you also get access to all of this. So you get access to a closed Facebook group of all kindergarten teachers for ideas and support. If you did join the Kindergarten Literacy Club already and you're not in the Facebook group, make sure you look in your email so that you can join us in there. You also get 3 webinars that you can watch on demand. They're each an hour and a half long on different kindergarten specific topics. You've got certificates too that you can download and hopefully use for your professional credits. And I'll be adding more to those webinars, adding other webinars as time goes on. We've got assessment tools for you, assess letter sounds, phonological awareness, phonics, all kinds of stuff. Just download it and use it. I've got a book list for you if you're looking for books about plants or, a book to teach predicting. There's like 24 pages of book lists for you. There's an app list with descriptions of apps. There's an if-then intervention toolkit where if your kids are like, for example, having trouble with blending, you just read down the if column and then it tells you suggestions for what to do with them. And then last but not least, I have a scope and sequence for the year, week by week, all written out for you, reading, writing, phonological awareness, and phonics skills. So maybe 2018 was stressful, overwhelming, but it is a new year. And I would love for this to be a fresh start for you, but you also have to make the decision. Are you going to continue on if 2018 was rough for you, or are you going to make a change and really make an improvement for 2019? So I just want you to imagine for a second what it would feel like to log into the Kindergarten Literacy Club, and you can find book titles for your read alouds. You can download center activities. Grab your guided reading books, get ideas for what to do with your kids who are struggling. And all of this is in one place, right? You're not having to go on Pinterest and look a billion different places, look for different files. All of this is in one place for you. So like I said, I'm now going to be giving away some 6-month memberships to the Kindergarten Literacy Club. Super excited about that. If you're not a winner, I want to quickly share some information with you about what a membership costs. If you wanted to do a month-by-month membership, that's $12 a month, comes out to be 39 cents a day. I would say that your sanity and time are definitely worth that. If you did want to buy 6 months in one big chunk, that's $60. The advantage there is that you get 1 month free. Or if you wanted to do 12 months in one big chunk, that's $108, and you get 3 months free that way. The monthly option is always there for you though, just $12, and you can also cancel anytime. You can always try it out for a month, see if it's a good fit, and then go from there. But let us do our giveaway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a list of everybody who's here, and I'm going to call a couple of names. I'm going to ask that if you don't hear your name and email address, that you don't say anything in the chat, because I want to leave the chat open for the winners to let me know that they are here. And then winners are going to need to email me so that I can have your email address and set you up with your free membership. All right, so I'm going to pull a couple of names. Are you ready? Okay, first winner is Heather. Her email is sheltonH@wcde.org. So Heather is one of my winners. Heather, make sure you let me know you're here in the chat. All right, let's see. Next winner is Kim, K. Vandermast at eppс.org. Kim, let us know if you're here. Next winner is Alexandra Bullock 07 at Gmail. Alexandra, let us know if you're here. Kim, is that you? Woohoo! All right, next winner is Melinda, MABETTERIDGE at hotmail.com. I'm going to try two more. Casey, KMG09D at Gmail. And then the last one is going to be Sylvie, SDACOTS69 at me.com. So those are my winners. Congrats to the winners. Make sure that you email me so that I do have your email address to go ahead and put into the system so that you can get your 6-month membership. Excited to have you join us. Like I said before, these are the monthly and then 6-month and annual membership prices. If you are not a winner, I would still absolutely love to support you and serve you in the club. But I do also want to let you know that the club is only open through Friday, January 25th, which is not this Friday, but the next Friday. So about 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks. This is different from a TPT product that you can buy anytime. Once the club closes, it's closed, and I'm not accepting new members until maybe this summer. Not 100% sure about dates. So I put the link up there for you. I will also email it to you. It's just kindergartenliteracyclub.com, but make sure to take a look before the 25th because it does close then, and I definitely don't want you to miss out and feel bummed. All right, so we have gone over time. Thank you so much for sticking around. I do have the freebie for you, and I would love to answer any questions you have, whether it was something that I missed as we were going through. Feel free to retype it. If you have questions about the Kindergarten Literacy Club, let me know. Would love for you to stay and chat. If you have to go put little ones to bed, I 100% understand, and thank you for being here. I am also going to be doing a Facebook Live to actually show you the inside of the Kindergarten Literacy Club and walk you through it on Thursday, 7 p.m. Central. So you're always welcome to come back then, but I would love now to answer your questions and see what I missed. The freebie is up there for you. For attending live, you're also going to get emailed a certificate, and that certificate should be coming tonight. Check your spam. If you don't have anything by tomorrow, definitely email me. You can just email any of those, respond to any of those reminder emails, and it will get to me. I answer every email that I get. If I don't answer your email, it's either I didn't get it or I somehow accidentally deleted it. So definitely feel free to email me. But like I said, also would love to chat with you and answer any questions you have. So grab your freebie. Again, this will be emailed to you if it doesn't work for whatever reason. And I want to see what questions I can answer. I will also put back up the Kindergarten Literacy Club link in a second. Gladys, you're welcome. Megan says, put little ones to bed. LOL, I have to put myself to bed. Yeah, me too, Megan. I go to bed at 9:30, but it's only 8:30 right now, so I've got an hour. Lisa, certificate's going to get emailed to you. Haley, what if you are a month-by-month member? So the way it works is once you're in, as long as you get in, as long as you start your membership before the 25th, then you're good. It's not like your membership's going to stop just because the club is closed. The club is always open for the club members. Like, we're always going and you're always getting new stuff. It's just that new members are not going to be added again until the summer. And again, I'm not 100% sure when I'm going to open it up again. So for this round, new members, of course, you'll get your new stuff every month. You'll go month to month. And then it's just that new members would not be accepted until this summer, probably. Elizabeth said, so if we try for 1 month before the 25th, will we have access to the later months? So Elizabeth, I think I answered your question. If you do 1 month, yes. And as long as you don't cancel, you will, of course, then have access to the subsequent months too. Lynette, if the freebie's not downloading, I would just wait, and it's getting emailed to you, so don't worry too much about it. If it is not working for you, you can always, wait until tomorrow, and if you don't get anything in your email and it's not in spam, then definitely email me. I'm happy to send you anything that you need. Sometimes emails get lost, but hopefully it'll come to you. Jennifer, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Vicki, I think I answered your question, but let me know if I didn't. Louisa, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Christy, for letter ID, some of those multi-sensory strategies that I mentioned would be really good. Something else that's helpful is actually just having the kids sort letters. If you have kids that really don't have a lot of letter knowledge at all, have them sort them by shape, or, maybe does the letter have a circle in it? Like the letter O, is it round? Does it have a hole? Does it have straight lines? Like having them actually think about the shape of the letter and talk about it and sort it is good. Otherwise, those multi-sensory strategies are good for practicing, the letter name as well. I will go ahead and put up the link again. This is being emailed to you, so no worries if the links aren't working. Morgan, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Carol. Okay, so Lynette says, how much time daily do you dedicate to blending? Good question. Is 10 minutes daily good? Just want an idea. Yeah, so Lynette, whole group, I would say like 5 or 10 minutes, like that should be plenty. And then if you want to do, just a couple minutes small group too, especially for those struggling kids, that's a good amount of time. It doesn't have to be a ton of time. It's more the consistency of it where you're doing it every day. That was a good question. Mary says, what program do you prefer to use to make activities for your students? So the stuff that I was showing you, Mary, is I use a program called Keynote, which comes with most Macs. That's just what I learned to use, and I feel like it's good for design, and so that's what I like. But you can, there's so many different things out there that people use. Amy says, just join, cannot wait, woohoo! Tish says, can you see things from the previous months? Yeah, so Tish, this is how it works. Right now, it's brand new, so there weren't December materials. You have your January materials, then you got February, March, etc. But if it's April and you've been a member since January, yes, it's all in there. That's what I'm trying to accomplish for you, is to build you this library where you have all of this stuff in one place, because I know you can go out and find it a zillion different places, but something that has really saved me time is just having everything in one place. So if it's June and you've been a member since January, then yeah, you can go back and get the January stuff. Now, let's say it's August and you're joining for the first time, then no, you wouldn't have access to all the prior months. You just have from August on. But again, that's down the line if you were to join later on. You're welcome, Sherry. Thanks for staying up late. 9:30 is late for me. Haley says, what happens if your kids can spell the words, but they cannot write? This is a huge problem, letter formation. So Haley, am I understanding you right that it's more of like a fine motor or like a handwriting issue? Because so one thing to do would definitely be to talk to your school OT, an occupational therapist. Your district might have one. Another helpful thing is to have the kids write with short pencils. Not the thick pencils, but like short little golf pencils. That helps with the tripod grip that we want them to use. You can also actually, you wouldn't want to do it with your blending thing, but if you use a binder to have the kids, I don't really know how to show this. If you use a binder to have the kids write on a slanted surface, that can be helpful too. All of these things are helpful. And then of course, all the multi-sensory activities that I mentioned do help with letter formation, because, they're saying the letter and they're also tracing it. Don't know if that's helpful. Daniela, sweet dreams. She says it's way past bedtime. Yes, totally understand that. Laura says, in the kindergarten club, will you also be sending resources in the summer months? Yes. So the summer month resources, we'll just kind of talk in the club and decide if you guys are going to want, more like beginning of the year stuff, which I imagine which would actually be really great because then at the beginning of the year, you have like a couple of months built up. So yes, we'll still be doing that. We can just, kind of see what you want to talk about in terms of topics, but the summer is actually a really good time, of course, to get that PD in. So I think a membership will still be helpful to you in the summer also. Nancy, you're welcome. I'm glad it was helpful. Teresa says, what do I do with a kinder that's operating at a second grade level? Yeah, so that's kind of like the other end of the spectrum. So a couple of ideas, Teresa. Number one, I wonder if there's other kindergarten sections in your school where you could maybe pull a couple of higher kids together to, do a guided reading group or a small group. Of course, I'm sure that you're meeting with the child individually and trying to challenge them with materials that are, at their independent, at their instructional level. You could consider seeing if there's a first grade class that would allow your kinder to move up for guided reading once, twice a week. That's an option too. That is hard. It's with our kinders, it's especially hard when we have a big range because we have some kids that maybe come in knowing no letters and some kids that can read. So that definitely is a challenge. Individual reading conferences and maybe being flexible with how you do small groups can be helpful. Paula, unfortunately, the Kindergarten Literacy Club, and I should have mentioned this is just American English spellings for all the materials. It's not in Spanish. I would love to be able to serve everybody, but of course, my time is limited just like everybody's. So this is just in English, the materials that you'll be getting. Marcia, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. Oh, good, Amy, I'm glad. Thank you for coming. Okay, so Haley's asking about how the $60 thing works. So if you wanted to get 6 months at a time, you would pay $60. And so then you would still get your 6 months, but like 5 times 12 would be 60. So when you get 6 months, you're actually only paying for 5, if that makes sense. Another way of thinking about it is this. You can do month by month, 12 a month. You can do month by month, or you can do 6 months at a time, and you're essentially paying $10 a month. Or you can do the whole year, and you're only paying $9 a month. You're just paying it in one chunk, if that explains it any better. Deborah, any helpful hints for ELLs that are very limited? That's so tricky. I'm sure you already use lots of picture stuff. Trying to think, a partner in the class who's hopefully you have a partner for each kid that English is their primary language. That's helpful. Whenever you can provide technology that says the word for them, because I was showing you an example of something like this. When you're having them write the word hat, if they're working on their own, of course, if they don't know that that's a hat, then they're not going to be able to write it or even write the first letter. So technology stuff like this, where with this, they can touch the sound and it says hat to them. Stuff like that is really helpful too. I'll keep thinking. Serena, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Melinda, so my email, I'll type it in the chat here, but it is Allison with 1 L, ALISON at learning@theprimarypond.com. And you can also, if you reply to any of those reminder emails, even though it didn't come it came from the webinar service or whatever, it still does go directly to me. So reply to those emails if you have any questions, and it does come to my email. Night, Barbara. Thank you for coming. Samantha, you have another webinar on writing, don't you? Yeah, so I have, it's not a live one, Samantha. It's a recording that I show, but if you need that link, definitely email me and I will get that to you for sure. Paula, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. You're welcome, Eileen. I can't remember how it's pronounced. Sorry. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you got some new ideas. You're welcome, Elizabeth. Okay, so Mary's talking about accessing the video. Yes. As long as everything goes well, this recorded, and you should get the recording emailed to you tonight, hopefully, if not by tomorrow. That recording, it does expire. I gave you guys a week and a half this time, so that you'd have a few more days, but I want to say that it expires not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. So if you want to share it with a teacher friend, please do. I have no problem with you sending the webinar recording. I have no problem with you sending the freebie to other teachers. That stuff is absolutely fine to share. So definitely feel free to forward that. It does last until not this Wednesday, but I think it's like next Wednesday. Lois is joining on the 25th since it's payday. All right. Glad we snuck in there. Dana, yeah, the intervention toolkit is only available in the Literacy Club. Helen says, Allison, is there any way you can make the letters for the binder with different colors for vowels? Also, are you planning to add digraphs? I can add both of those, Helen. Can you remind me? Like I said, it's getting close to my bedtime, and I might wake up tomorrow and have no memory of this conversation. So, Helen, if you'll email me, I will be happy to add that, and you can download it pretty easily. Megan says, I use what we call the movable alphabet before they're able to write. I'm curious what that is, Megan. Terry, I'm glad it was helpful. Thanks for tuning in from Australia. Oh, Elizabeth, thank you for staying up. I'm glad it was worth it. Kathleen, so for other webinars, I have some recordings that I show just at different times to hopefully like meet your schedule. So you are welcome to email me and I will happily send you those links. Live webinars, I don't have anything for kinder coming up. I do have like a first and second grade one on reading strategies. That's coming up in 2 weeks on my website, learning at the, sorry, burping, Primary Pond. If you go to workshops, you can see the upcoming ones that are live. But again, you can email me if you want. Anybody can email me for the links of the ones that, you know, are shown at different times. Yes, Janice, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. For encouraging that tripod grip, what I've learned is that the short pencils are better than the jumbo pencils. The OTs that I know will say no jumbo pencils and use the mini pencils instead. Lori says, I just joined. Woohoo! Awesome. If you are a member of the Kinder Literacy Club, make sure you get in the Facebook group because I know we already have a number of members, but not all of you are in the Facebook group. So make sure you get in there so we can chat. I'll go live and maybe make a little video for you tomorrow. Deborah, how can ELLs learn 100 sight words and all the other requirements they're expected to learn along with learning a new language? They probably can't because, as you know, Deborah, learning language takes 4 to 7 years. So I don't know if your district is requiring that they would learn all of that in the language, but to me, that's not developmentally appropriate. Unfortunately, I'm not the boss of the world. So I feel your pain if that pressure is on you for sure. Mia, I'm glad it was helpful. Thank you for coming. Julie says she has kids that are at a level H and some that only know a few letters. That is a big range, and that does make it tricky. At least, Julie, you have a couple of kids that are at level H as opposed to just like one outlier. Jan says, just signed up, anxious, check it out. Awesome. Jalen says, this was amazing. Jalen, you'll have to tell me if I'm saying your name correctly. Just signed up for 6 months. Woohoo. Haley, email me that question about the PO number. I can probably figure that out for you. I don't have something set up right now, but I will figure that out for you. You're welcome, Deborah. Okay, so Lillian says, if you get the 6-month membership, which ends around the end of June, would you lose access to those months if you don't renew? So Lillian, you would lose your login, but what you wouldn't lose is the files. So you can, you know, if your membership ends after 6 months or whatever, maybe you're teaching a different grade, just make sure that you download the files. You have the right to use those files until you're 82 if you want. You know, once you're in the club, like those are yours to download and use. Obviously not to share because one membership is for one teacher. But as long as you download those files, you have access to them whenever. It doesn't just end when your membership ends. The only thing that would end is your ability to get the new monthly materials, and then B, to have that login. You won't have the login, but if you download the files, then you'll be fine. Megan, good, I'm glad. Elizabeth, I'm going to be sending the recording, knock on wood, to everybody. If you don't get anything by tomorrow, email me and let me know. Yes, Mary, do feel free to share. Yes, Lynette, of course, email me anytime. Just reply to any of those reminder emails. Oh, that's cool, Megan. Megan is just describing a Montessori. I think I've seen those maybe or something similar a long time ago. That's cool. Okay, well, did I miss anybody's question? Feel free to retype if I did miss yours, because I know it was kind of scrolling fast before. Not seeing any that I missed. Yes, people are saying, oh, great, awesome to share. Yes, please send this recording to them. Just send the whole thing with the freebie too. You know, this is different than like a product or the membership. This free stuff, this workshop, like, you know, the more people you can share with, the better. So do feel free to share. Okay, so if you don't see anything from me by tomorrow, make sure to email me. Check your spam too, because sometimes it goes there. But you'll be getting the certificate, you'll be getting the freebie, you'll be getting the recording, you'll be getting the Kindergarten Literacy Club link. So look for that in your email. If you do think of a question later, or I just unfortunately missed your question now, feel free to email me. Like I said, I answer all my emails unless it doesn't get to me or unless I accidentally delete it. I will be happy to chat with you. If you have a specific question, I'm still happy to chat with you. Feel free to email me. We can talk through if you have any questions about the Literacy Club or anything that we talked about tonight, any of the strategies, how you might apply them. Otherwise, if you would like, you can come to the Facebook Live on my Facebook page. It's Learning at the Primary Pond. That's on Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. I'll show you around inside the club so you can see what's in there. There is a video on this page that you can watch too. But if you think of other questions too about what we talked about tonight, come to the Facebook Live, bring them, we can talk some more. I hope this was helpful to you. Again, do feel free to share this, the recording, the freebie, whatever, with your team. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.